Happy Tinny Talk on my voice. I can't even do proper Happy Tinny Talk. Happy Tinny Talk. Welcome back to another episode of Tinny Talk. And I have a new friend, a new Irish friend. Oisin Mulligan, how are you?
What's the crack? How are we getting on? We're united.
We've made it. We did the Tinny Talk. We met a couple of weeks ago in Manchester.
Yeah, it was sick.
And straight away it was like, the minute you said, hi everyone, I'm an Irish cunt. And I was like, a random Irish cunt. I was like, that's my kind of guy. I love it.
I feel
I was
like when
like,
everybody's
straight away.
shouting out their qualifications, I'm like, I'm not that level. So let's just go below that.
Well, I love that. I was like, darn it, why didn't I think of so? Like, I just was like, hi, I'm a strong woman, and I'm buzzing to be. I didn't even mention the fact that I'm an online coach promoting a
Yeah,
business. So I'm a strong woman athlete and I own a gym, and I'm buzzing.
yeah.
I'm so
That's how
high
you
in
know.
coffee.
That's how you know you're a good online coach, and you don't have to go around saying it to everybody. People just have an idea based off of your
Well,
speaking and your
I
content.
hope so, because I was like, after everyone else was like, I'm an online coach. I was like, don't promote your business in this perfect space, Nicola.
Yeah,
God's sake. I was like, I just want to say that I'm a strong woman. That's my
yeah.
best bit.
I think it's good though, because in stuff like that, I think like at the panels and when we're trying to help people, even with podcasts, I find it a lot. If the first thing you're saying is, "Oh, I'm an online coach, I'm this," it comes across as if you're trying to sell something rather than help people. And like when you're talking about what you're doing and the fact that you introduce yourself as, "Look, I help people out" or whatever, it goes to show you're helping people out first rather
Yeah.
than just trying to sell them some shit. And I think that that's super important to me, as well as what even seeing you on stage at the fitness expo, like it was the exact same. And I think that that's what I massively respected about you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I just forget because, like, I literally say this to people. Like, people that I work with get really annoyed and they're like, you need to, like, promote your brand. I'm like, yes, but I forget. They're
Yeah,
like, why? I'm like, because I'm having so much fun. And they're like, but Nicola, your business. I'm like, ugh, whatever. That's not my
yeah,
job. Tell my accountant in there. I just don't care. Like, I'm just, like you said, it's really not about the money and things for me. I just want to help people. I was actually speaking to my boyfriend last night, and we've got those the Diary of the CEO conversation cards.
yeah,
They're really good, right? Anyway, well, my boyfriend, he was pretty shit at them because he's not deep. So he kept going, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, you're supposed to get deep. Anyway, so it said, like, what do you want? What would you want to be remembered for? And I was like, I want to be remembered for the person that helped people.
yeah.
Like, I want people, and it doesn't matter how, on what level, I want whoever knew me, I want them to be like, oh yeah, she really helped me, or she did this one time, or I remember she said this on her podcast and it really helped change my life, blah, blah. That's what I want to be remembered for. I don't care about the money. I just want
Yeah,
to do it
yeah.
because I love it.
I think that's the same, and actually probably a trap that I got caught up into. Like once my Instagram account had taken off and stuff, so I had to pull back from social media for a little while initially when my socials run up, because I got really attached to the social media numbers and stuff like that. And then I had to sit back and be like, what's really important at the end of the day? Like, what do I
Yeah.
want? Do I want people to know me as a fitness influencer, as that guy who makes all the videos online? I'm like, no, that's not what I want them to know me for. I want them to know that this guy genuinely impacted my life or had an impact in some way, positive, rather than just again chasing fucking likes and followers. And that rots your brain over time, and that's something that I had to learn the hard way initially when this all started to happen.
100%. Like, I found myself doing that as well. I got like really obsessed. My following went up like really like 30,000 in like 3 months.
Crazy.
It just went woof when I went to America in December. And I was getting obsessed. I was like, oh my God, let's get these numbers up, blah, blah, blah. And then I hired somebody to do my social media. She was helping me at the time and it went up. And then I started doing it myself again because I was like, I think I can do it myself. And again, I've just gotten like hooked on the numbers, and I'm just like, it's because I am driven by numbers. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily like what the Instagram, like people watching and things, but I like the numbers to be quite similar. So if one video gets like 10,000, but another gets 20, I'm like, why has this one only got 10,000? This one's got
Yeah, yeah,
20,000.
yeah.
So I've now delegated it to my sister. She's got her own social media company. So I was like, can you just do it, because I want to focus my energy on helping people and
Yeah.
not on this bullshit numbers. But I just get so obsessed. Like if I want to hit a number, it's gonna happen, and
Yeah, I
but
think
I will
sometimes
channel my energy to it.
it's hard as well, because those numbers on social media are like people impacted as well. So like obviously you want to impact more people, and so the
Yeah,
goal is to try and get those numbers up in some sort of way to garner that. But it's very hard to stay true to who you are and what you believe in, and spreading the correct and information,
yeah.
correct message when you know if you do the opposite, that'll just explode completely. But obviously then you're not helping people. So obviously with what you're doing now, it's kind of a balance between both, which is important.
Yeah, but I also think as well, see with the numbers, right? Even if your video gets 500 views, if you put 500 people in the room you got to talk to, you'd be fucking chuffed.
Fucking mental, innit? Yeah.
That's what I think. And it's like, because there was one reel, I was like, it's only 5,000 views. And I was like, if I filled out a stadium with 5,000 people, I'd be fucking delighted.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's
And
crazy.
this is what we forget. Like, that's the same thing. Like, if you had a arena, which is my long-term wish and dream, is to have an arena filled with people looking at me on a stage. If that was 5,000 people, if there was fucking 100 people there, I'd be delighted.
It'd be crazy. Yeah.
So
And
it's the
you
same thing on social media. Like 5,000 people have just watched your video, took the time to sit and watch what you've just said. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's mental.
So it's what. Anyway, tell us about your journey, because I know that you've got. I had a quick look through your social media. I don't look too much because I want to learn from you, not from
Yeah.
your social media. I know you've went through your own fat loss journey.
Yeah.
Were you a coach when you were fat?
No. So
So your journey got you into this job as well.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I think the journey is like almost two parts. So there's like two parts of my journey. First part is obviously that weight loss aspect, getting into being a coach. Probably after the weight loss, there was probably a period there where I really struggled with body image and really struggled with regards to relationship with food and stuff because I'd done all the kind of wrong things. And then kind of mental health journey there after that as well.
Okay.
There's like two parts. The first part would be, I suppose, if you want me to go into it, I'd
Yeah.
be spieling on here all day. So I was about 130 kilos back when I was in school, and for anybody who has been to school and Ireland, you know, bullying is absolutely atrocious. Like happens all the time. But yeah, I was atrociously bullied the whole way through school. Hated the way that I looked off the back. I had no confidence off the back of that then as well. And everything was targeted towards my weight. So everything that was happening was like, oh, it's because you're fat. I would go to the doctor. I'd have a pain in my stomach or a pain somewhere, and they'd be like, oh, it's because you're fat, because you have this weight and you need to lose weight. I'd be in school and the lads would be laughing at me, and it's because you're fat, or something would happen and it's because you're fat. So that's what kind of the messaging I was getting at. Every issue I was having was my weight, and that kind of leads into later on in my journey. But I got to a certain point anyway, I was about 130 kilos, and this was just before I finished up school to decide what I was going to do in college and study. Funny enough, I had actually decided, I said I was going to go do architecture. I don't know where the fuck that came from, but anyway, I was going to go ahead and do that. But then my brother actually came into this exact bedroom where I'm sat now, sat down beside me, and was like, Oisin, if we don't get started on trying to help you become a little bit healthier. And it wasn't just the aspect of I don't think he gave a fuck the fact that I had weight on me. I don't think that's actually why he came in to help me. I think he was noticing that I wasn't leaving my room, I wasn't doing anything, I was awful depressed all the time and kind of just hiding away because I had no confidence whatsoever. So he came in to try and help with that more so than the weight loss aspect, and he approached it in a different way. And this is where a lot of my coaching and stuff kind of comes from, and a lot of my videos would kind of touch on, is coming from an empathetic and supportive background rather than coming at something like you're fat, you're lazy, you're overweight, you need to get up and do something, work harder and all this other bullshit. I believe that doesn't work. It might work to lose weight and then you're going to have more problems after, but I think that's where that kind of started. So he came in to support me, and anyone who has an older brother knows that when you're younger you look up to them. They're the coolest people on planet. Their fucking friends are the coolest people on planet Earth. So when he asked me to go to the gym with him and his friends, I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. Yeah, absolutely. And so I went, and like I just go in, he'd literally do bicep curls, he'd be touching my arm and be like, oh, you're getting bigger, you're doing this, and he'd support me the whole way. And then whenever I was struggling with food or struggling with, maybe I'd have a takeaway and I'd feel really guilty because obviously then I wanted to lose weight or whatever, and so I felt like I fucked it up. He'd come in here and be like, look, you're a normal human being, food tastes nice, of course you're going to want to eat the takeaways, just get back on and go back to normal. So anytime I felt like giving up or was really struggling with anything, whether it be mental health or whether it be with my physical or nutrition or whatever it might be, he was here to support me and guide me along the way. And within that kind of year period, I'd lost a significant amount of weight. Now I'm not too sure how much. I always refused to take progress pictures because I was so afraid of the way I looked in the mirror, so self-conscious of taking my t-shirt off. It was actually so hard to get in. The hardest part of getting into the gym initially after getting in, because the first couple of sessions are always difficult, was actually having to go into the changing room to change into my gear and change into my stuff. So I'd always like go into the bathroom, lock the door, get changed, and then go back out, rather than kind of just what most lads would do, is just take the top off, throw on a different top on or after or whatever. So that part of the journey was kind of him guiding me, and then it came to college to go to college and stuff, and I just switched. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go do sports science. Every single person in my school was like, you're an idiot for going and doing that. Like, what are you going to do in that course? Because one, I hadn't lost all the weight, so I wasn't the fittest person on planet Earth going into a sports course.
Yeah.
Never even went to a PE class in my whole entire life. I used to just make up excuses, but it's because I never felt supported. So, anyways, went off, did that, and kind of learned more about nutrition, kind of learned more about food, and learned how to improve my relationship with food. Because even though I was losing weight, and this leads back to everything being connected to my weight. So every problem that I ever had was told because I was fat. When it
Yeah.
came to losing weight, I thought losing weight was the solution to every single problem that I had. So if I wasn't
Yeah.
feeling good, I wasn't happy, whatever was going on in life, I just needed to lose more and more weight. And so when I seen the scales come down, I was like, oh, lower scale weight is actually better. But it
Yeah.
turned out that that wasn't actually the case. And because I got to a point where I was like below 60 kilos, eating maybe one chicken breast for my dinner every day, and that was it, and just fecking everything else into the bin. My mum was awful worried about me with the stuff I was eating. Then I went on and heard diet advice online to eat only one meal a day, so I cut out every other meal and was just having that one meal. And but what started to happen was this lower scale weight was coming in, but I was actually feeling worse. And I was like, holy fuck, like this is not working, or it's not connecting my scale weight. Happiness isn't found in that number. I came to realize that the hard way.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, I need to stop focusing on the way that I look. So even in the gym, the only way that I ever trained was, I want to get bigger biceps, I want to have a bigger chest, I want to do whatever, for whatever attention or whatever I was doing it for. And then I realized like the reason I need to do this is not for the way that I look, but rather for the way that I feel. And I started to completely change up the forms of training that I do, the way that I train. And it's actually where I think a lot of people who fall into kind of bodybuilding training kind of fall down a little bit, because they actually end up with nearly more negative body image than positive,
Yeah.
because all they're doing is looking at and critiquing their body all the time. And it makes things really difficult. And because I was in that style of training of wanting to change how I looked, I'd often like come home, and it's like if you walked by a picture frame in your house right once and it was a little bit crooked, you probably wouldn't notice. But if you were looking at that picture frame every single day, you'd be like adjusting, be like, oh no, that's not straight, or this, and you'd critique little parts of maybe the picture or the painting or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The more you look at it, and that's essentially what happened to my body. The more I looked at it, the more critical I became of it.
Yeah.
So eventually I pulled back and I started to do kickboxing. I started to do boxing, into jiu-jitsu now. I do weight training for the sake of how I feel, and I do weight training for the sake of benefiting those sports.
Yeah.
And that's why I do that, and I completely change it around. Even with the walking aspect and stuff like that, it's important for me to do my walks for the sake of feeling better, rather than going out to hit a certain step number, or
Mm-hmm.
going out to just lose fat, like the only reason I'm here. Because again, when you're in a negative health space, or headspace, or whatever it is going on, I think it's very, very difficult to get out and do something if the reason is just because I'm fat, because you're beating yourself up even more.
Yeah.
And this really, really helped. I think it was 2020. I came home, so I was living in Spain doing online coaching at the time. I broke up with my ex-girlfriend at the time, came back home, and when I came back home, in Ireland there's a housing crisis for the last number of years. There's fuck all houses available, and especially if you're young, there's no opportunities here pretty much. So everybody else just fucks off to pretty much every other country. Now I did have maybe one or two friends here, but when I came back, my base of pretty much everybody I knew and anybody I chat to was kind of gone. And I felt disconnected from a few people because I hadn't seen them in a while. And so I had just broken up with my ex-girlfriend, came back home, moved back into my home house here, and I felt like I was starting from zero again. And
Yeah.
exercise helped me get out of that headspace, because it got to a certain point where I was literally sat on the kitchen table downstairs crying with my mum. I was actually at the point where I was going to get into my car and just driving into a wall somewhere. I remember I was like, I just really need help, in that kind of panic state. And I don't think people realize how low that can get until you actually hit a point like that,
Yeah.
because I felt
100%.
like there was literally no solution to my problem. There's nothing that could have helped, and so I was just crying my eyes out to mum. And luckily, I told her, "Can you just?" Because she was on to me for years. She's a therapist, and she asked, "Could she book me into therapy?" a few times, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to speak to people, like that's not what I do," or whatever it might be. So, anyways, I told her to book me one. Don't tell me when it is. And so she booked me a therapy session. Didn't tell me when it was. Actually told me, "Oh, sure, we're going to McDonald's." I think this was like 3 or 4 weeks later, and I never turned down at McDonald's. You asked me to go on, I'm fucking getting up and going, no matter what time of day it is. So I went downstairs. Turns out we didn't go to McDonald's. We pulled up outside this old man's house, which is my therapist now, and he's a fucking legend. And she was like,
Nice.
"You're going in there," and that was the change in my life. Starting to work on the backgrounds of why I'd gained weight in the past was actually related to how I was feeling. So it
Yeah.
was actually how I was feeling that was impacting my fat. It wasn't that I was fat and that was making me unhappy. It was actually kind of almost the opposite way around, and that kind of led me full circle to where I am now, to try and help people through
Yeah.
similar and through tough times, through using exercise or improving their overall health. So long
I,
story.
I love it. I love it. And I love that, I think a lot of people do get obsessed with how they look, especially when there is underlying unhappiness.
Yeah.
I did that myself. I started losing weight. So I had a very, very honest person as well in my life that was like, yeah, you're fat. So I had my daughter, she's 13 now, so I had my daughter and I had preeclampsia when I was pregnant with Chloe, just high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And she was ended up being 9 weeks early because I was really, really ill. And after I had her, I just kept thinking, I actually didn't realise that I was fat at that point. Before I had her, I'd been drinking every weekend, going out every weekend. I'd obviously gained weight before I had her, but when I was pregnant, I couldn't drink, so I ate more food.
Yeah.
Weird that, because I thought I was really happy. Got really, really overweight, 22 stone, and then when I had her, I was like, I'm fat now. I didn't know, and I was fat. Nobody told me. I
Yeah.
just thought, well, I'm pregnant, but I wasn't. I was fat. And I sat with my doctor, my specialist that was looking after me, and I said, did she come early because I'm fat? And she said, you had preeclampsia, which can happen to anyone, but you made it worse because you're fat.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I have made that condition worse, which potentially my baby, thank goodness, she was absolutely fine. Didn't have any issues. But I've seen other babies in neonatal that weren't fine,
Okay.
that struggled. You know, Chloe was absolutely fine. She needed to learn to feed, and when she went home, she was a very strong baby. But 9 weeks early is a lot. And I thought, you know, I was lucky that she was okay, but I maybe wouldn't have been. And I played a huge part in that, her coming that early, because I was so fat and so unhealthy. And that's just the truth of it. And I'm so glad that that doctor said that, because a lot of times they would, beat around the bush, but she was like, no, you did make it worse because you're fat.
Yeah.
Simple. Your blood pressure was high anyway. It's gotten higher with the preeclampsia. You've put on weight. You've made it worse. So yes, it is partly your responsibility. And it was like literally as soon as my C-section healed, I said I will not have another child until I've lost 10 stone.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And then I lost it. It wasn't that as simple as that. And all I did was walk. I didn't go to gym. I didn't, well, I did think I did little bits of running at the end, but it was like right at the end before I got pregnant again. All I did was walk. And there was no steps then. That was years and years and years ago. My daughter's 13. There was no step numbers. There was no, neat up 24/7. Although we
Yeah.
love that from Darren, by the way. There was none of that. It was just move more. You have to get up and move. That's all I knew. Like, don't eat shit and move more. And that's all I did was I still ate what I loved, but I just reduced it.
Yeah.
And I still had takeaways, but I chose very carefully what I was going to have in the takeaway and then lost the weight. But then I did get to a point when it then started coming out, oh, you should hit these steps and your BMI should be this much, not and the numbers. As I said, I'm
Yeah.
quite obsessed with numbers. So I was like, oh, I need to be 9 stone on the scales. I've never been 9 stone since I can remember.
Yeah.
9 stone, 9 stone. And even when I was at my littlest, when I was literally not eating anything fun, like I wouldn't go out, I wouldn't do anything. I would be doing classes left, right, and centre. And I still couldn't hit 9 stone. I'm just obviously not built to be like that. I carry a lot of muscle naturally, but I was obsessed. And then what I realised was I was not any happy. I was probably happier when I was fat.
Yeah, it's crazy, and even that thing with BMI, BMI is such a mad one because so many people would be so obsessed if I have to be this certain number for my BMI, I have to be this, and I think that scale. It's not that like for some, again, it gives you a general indication in at times, but it's not something that's accurate for absolutely everybody. I think what actually somehow needs to be incorporated into the BMI scale is someone's life. Like again, it's easier for me to have a lower BMI because I'm a fucking online coach that sits at home. I can cook my food and do whatever. Sedentary job might make it a little bit harder, but realistically, as online coaches, we probably a good bit more free time than what most people have, or we're very exercise focused because that's what we have to do for our jobs, and we'll be telling people to do it, so it's easier. So therefore, a lower BMI is probably easier for me to achieve in certain aspects. For someone that's working an office job that's also sedentary but has no community of exercise or anyone that does it around them, or have children or whatever, they maybe be susceptible to a higher BMI, but could also probably be healthier at a higher BMI as well, because again, it's not such an accurate factor, and it's something that like even I got caught up in that, and I think a lot of people get caught up in it because every time you go to the doctor, that's what you're told. You're like, oh, your BMI is too high, or this is the problem because of this. And I think on the other aspect of that scale, because I would have been on the aspect of the scale if someone had approached me like your doctor and been like, that's your fault, I would actually found that probably quite difficult, and I would have reclused. And I think that this is where different coaching styles kind of work, and your one would be, look, I need to be called out my bullshit and I need to be held responsible. And I
Yeah.
think now later on in life, me for responsibility super important too. Everything that happens to me is because of me. All right, I can control what I can control. I can't control what other people do, so I may as well just focus on that. And I think in those situations and the situation that you're in, it's brilliant for like the fact that you took that on board and were like, look, I have to make a change here. And I think actually, I think there's scientific research that show the biggest reason why people make weight changes and actually don't put weight back on is health scares.
Yeah, and I think more so that I wasn't doing it for me anymore. It
Yeah,
was, when you have kids, it's a game changer. It wasn't for me. I was like, I just kept thinking about, I didn't want to be the mom that couldn't do the sports day running race because I was too embarrassed because I was fat. I didn't want to be the mom that was eating pizza and McDonald's but telling my kids they had to eat healthy. I didn't want, the more I thought about Chloe, the more I was like, I can't, I don't want to be that
yeah,
person because I've seen it, and I don't want to have another. I knew I wanted another child, and I just knew that I wasn't going to risk having our like a next child 9 weeks early, and he wasn't. He was a week late, and he was a massive bloody thing. He was like 3 times the size of Chloe, but yeah, it came down to like why I really wanted to do it, and it was from Chloe. So,
yeah,
and it stands like that. Everything I do is like just do it. So it's lead by example for them always.
yeah.
So I think like it can come down to a health scare, like you said, but I didn't really take that on board for me. I just was like, that was my responsibility, but this is the people I need to change it for now.
And I think that's important because a lot of what people don't think about, and for maybe anyone listening, is the consequences of taking the action or not taking action. Because there's consequences to everything. There's consequences that if I want to lose weight, yes, I'm going to have to go out and do steps. That's a consequence. It's hard to do. It's not easy. I wouldn't even say a
Yeah,
consequence. You kind of have the choice. And what's the consequence of going out and do steps? Well, I have less time for sitting on the couch and watching Netflix. Obviously, that's a little bit easier and sometimes more enjoyable than getting outside and getting your walking in. Although I would argue that sometimes that you just
yeah,
think it is until you actually get out. But then there's also the consequences of if you don't take the action, it's not going to just impact you. A lot of people think, oh, it's just going to impact me. If I gain weight, it's just impacting me, so it's not that big a deal. If you actually view the bigger picture of everything it's impacting, then it is actually going to make you more likely to change. And it's actually
yeah,
Lewis Potts. So Lewis is at the event as well. He's an absolute genius. He runs a thing for coaches to help them become better coaches, and I've done it to Adherence Amplifier. But in that, he talks often about the consequences of for other people, and I think it's a thing that helps a lot of people get motivated. Because if you don't lose weight, right, and you're gaining weight or whatever it might be, yes, there's consequences on you, like health stuff and stuff like that, but also for family members and your children and for your relationships. Like relationships, it might be harder for you to take your clothes off in the bedroom. Your relationships might be a little bit harder to sustain because you find it hard to be in the moment and actually enjoy moments because you're so conscious about your clothes and the way that you're feeling in your clothes. And again,
yeah,
a lot of the weight loss aspect is like weight loss is a side factor of improving your overall feeling in yourself, and that happens by staying consistent. That happens by developing this self-belief, and it's actually something I talk about quite often as well. Is like, imagine you ask your friend, right, we're going to meet at a coffee shop at 6 p.m, will you meet me there? And your friend was like, yeah, I'll be there at 6 p.m, let's have a chat, let's go for a coffee. You showed up, they didn't show up. Second time, you're like, look, we meet for a coffee shop at 6 p.m. You go to coffee shop that didn't show up. Bet you wouldn't show up for that friend again. Bet you wouldn't have trust in that friend. Bet you wouldn't be friends with that friend. That's what guys are, or that's what you guys who are trying to lose weight are probably doing to yourselves all the time. I'm going to track my calories this week. Oh, I'm going to get outside and do a walk today. And I do. When you're not following through on this, your self-belief, self-confidence is decreasing off the back of that. It's not even connected to you gaining weight or anything else. It's because you quite literally can't trust yourself to do what
yeah,
you're saying you're doing. And this is where you have the consequences on both ends of the spectrum. Consequences for yourself, your self-belief and confidence, which also impacts your kids' lives by, again, even being able to go to a swimming pool with them. Maybe you're not
yeah.
body confident enough to do that. And I think, like, you nailed that here, there. I think it's just as important. A lot of people are like, oh, should just do it for yourself. But I think actually, even thinking back to my own journey, I was probably doing it for my brother because I knew he was relying on me to lose weight and he'd put in so much effort to me. And I was probably doing it for my friends, my family, and stuff like that. They'd always be the thoughts that I had in my head. And yeah, it's probably a point I don't bring up enough as well.
Yeah, it's more powerful. Like, yeah, you have to do things for you, and we do see that on social media a lot. Like, do it for you, no one else, and all this
Yeah,
motivational speaking, right? But we're humans,
yeah,
right? We are going to do things for other people. We are, no matter how selfish a person is, you will always want to people please with somebody in your life. somebody. So if you can't do it for you, who the fuck are you going to do it for?
Yeah.
Who are you going to do it for? Like, I don't want to go to the gym today. I can't be asked. I'm not feeling well. But I promised somebody that I would meet them there at 2:00. Somebody that's just getting back into the gym. A subject we're actually going to touch on. Somebody that's just getting back into the gym after a bad event has happened to them, and I've promised them I'm going. Now, I can't be asked, but I'm going because I promised that person that I'm going to the gym with them. So it's things like that, like doing it for someone else is so powerful. I always use the example, like where I'm from in Peterhead, where a lot of people are quite family orientated, and they will go and help their granny go food shopping and things like that. Where yourself, you're sitting in your house, you've got to go food shopping, it's pissing rain outside, you can't be asked, you don't bother going, which means your meal prep doesn't go to plan. But if you've told your little fucking granny you're taking her shopping, it doesn't matter how bad it is outside, you're taking your granny shopping because you've promised her. You're not going to let her down.
Yeah.
So start thinking about the people around you. If you're losing weight, if you're any goal you're trying to achieve, it goes for anything. Look, if you want it that badly and you're struggling to do it for you, because I think sometimes self-worth and all that can come into that, and you hold yourself back. Who else can you do it for?
Yeah.
Who in your life will benefit? Always write that down. If I lose weight, who will it benefit? Forget me. Who else will it benefit? My partner, my mum, my dad, my kids, whoever. The dog will get walked more.
Yeah.
Like, who's it going to benefit? Because that's way more powerful than doing it for yourself. And eventually you will see the benefits and you'll then want to continue it yourself. But to start a journey, think about those around you, I think. 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's super key, and like a comparison aspect is kind of what leads into that then as well. You know, the way people will be kind of comparing each other, or comparing to what other people are doing. I think comparison thing can one be beneficial? Obviously, it can push you on to try and do harder, and for me, a lot of the time it'll probably hold me back. But one thing which is actually quite negative, which I find actually helps a lot of people, compare down. There's always someone in a worse position or someone in a harder position than you. So what I would say to a lot of people that are struggling to lose weight or take action, or maybe struggling because they think they're not doing enough, which is a big aspect of weight loss as well, because it's always like I need to do more and more and more, and I can't do that, so I'm not going to do anything. Is if you compare yourself to maybe people listening to this podcast, how many people in your life do you know are even listening to a health-based podcast trying to improve their health, their fat loss goals? Probably fuck all. If you ask your next door neighbor, probably don't even know what a calorie is, probably don't even know what fat content is, probably don't even know how to lose weight, whatever. So you're already like 20 steps ahead of those people. So instead of comparing yourself to the people that are 20 steps ahead of you and feeling so guilty and bad about yourself, compare down. Look at someone else and be like, fuck, I actually am further ahead than this person. I'm doing better. Yes, that can be negative, but also it can really give you a good positive push. And I've caught myself doing that a few times, and it's really, really good for me too, because it helps me push on and do better. And yes, I have the aim ahead of, look, I want to lose this amount of weight, and this person has lost this amount of weight, and maybe I want to do that too, or whatever it might be. But if I compare down, I'm actually doing well for where I am. Because I think a lot of people fall into the thing of I should be doing this, I should be doing that.
Yeah.
Fuck all the shoulds, just do what you can.
Yeah. 100%. Try your best. Comparison is something that I talk a lot about in schools and stuff like that, because kids compare themselves to social media all the time. And you have to try and flip it rather than comparison. See it as inspiration. Like, if you're looking up to somebody, you have to try and remember that that person started where you are. They're just on their chapter 20, you're on chapter 1. So you'll get to chapter 20. So instead of like, what I always say, instead of being like, oh, wish I could do that, I wish I could lose the weight, why not ask them how they did it? Find out, research, how did they do it? Yeah. I did that with Eddie Hall with his deadlift. I watched him do his 500. I told him this. I watched him do his 500 kilo deadlift, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be like Eddie Hall. At that stage, I actually didn't realize that it would be humanly impossible for me to pull 500 kilos. But in my brain, I was like, if Eddie can do it, maybe I can do it. Like, I was naive. I didn't know. But then I started to learn. But then what I did realize is, okay, I can't pull 500, but I can pull something big for me, my size. So I could have been like, oh, I wish I could be like Eddie Hall, but I probably won't be. And he already had 10 years experience in me. I didn't even realize that I couldn't ever pull 500 because I'm too little. like that. I was just like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. But there was no point in actually comparing to him, because he had 10 years experience on fit, if not more. He'd been in the strongman industry for a long time. That was his full-time job. Like, there was a million things. If you're going to compare the whole thing.
Yeah.
So instead of comparing, use it as inspiration. How did he get there? what did he do? And then I got to train with Eddie and he told me exactly what to do and I hit a PB. So, do you know what I mean? I was like, it's fine. Now I know. You want
I need
like
help off him next.
I know exactly. I messaged him. I was like, I don't know what else. Apparently I need to add like 7 kilos to my deadlift now, so I get £500.
Okay, sick.
So I'm like, oh, why did nobody tell me? Like I just finished my deadlift cycle. I would have done the £500 or whatever it is. I think it was £500. Maybe it's not £500. Maybe that's a lie. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, so I think if you're comparing yourself to somebody, anyone that's listening, just stop a minute and remember that they're further on ahead of you, but they did start where you are. So instead of wishing or thinking, oh, I want to get there, how did they get there?
Yeah.
What was their process to get there? And then just take the steps. Stop worrying about where they are. Where did they start?
Sorry to cut you off. I think a lot of people as well with the comparison thing look at what someone else has but don't see the background of it and actually realize that maybe you don't want that as well, or maybe realize the sacrifices have to be made because there's a price tag for everything. For example,
100%.
with Eddie Hall deadlifting that amount, there's sacrifice that he'd had to spend less time with his kids. He had to get and maybe hurt and injure himself X amount of times. He had to put X amount of time into training. Do you really want that? That is not to push people away, but it's to really understand the full sacrifice.
Yeah.
And if someone wants that's sick, and to make that sacrifice is unbelievable, and to do things like that and achieve that is class. My card of the weight loss aspect, I think, is with comparison of people being like, oh, this person lost £10 in this amount. Okay, compare yourself. You want to lose £10. Okay, well, let's look at the methods that person used rather than just looking at the result, because there's a price tag that person paid to lose £10, and that might be only eating chicken breast once per day for the whole entire 6-month period or whatever it might be. And I think that's where it's important. So there's a price tag to everything, and it's to decide, yes, you want the result, but you want to pay the price tag for that as well. Like a lot of stuff that you'd see on social media online as well is not true and false.
Yes.
Something that I always try and break down. Like everybody sees the Instagram following or whatever it might be as being I'm no fucking different. When I had fucking 2,000 followers, my life is no different to when I have 500,000. I'm the exact same person. I haven't changed. I don't want to change. And with online coaching, like a lot of people would make it out as if it's the best job on planet Earth or whatever, and that you're sitting out and you're on the fucking laptop inside half the time. That's what people do. And I'm not complaining. I love this job. I wouldn't change it. But I think social media puts out a different picture there in comparison to what someone's real situation is. Like if someone's lost £10, they're putting out, look at the difference in me and my bikini, but they're not putting out, I felt like shit the whole way through. That you see that often with like bodybuilders where they've dieted down and stand on stage with like a 6-pack or whatever, and they're putting out this class image that I'm this.
Yeah.
But you don't see that they're fucking absolutely shaking when they're getting off the stage and going to eat their food, and
exactly.
they can't maintain that. So I think that's fucking unbelievably important. And like same for people like looking at you, like Nicola, what you have achieved. You didn't just achieve that. That wasn't something that just happened to you.
No.
It was something that you made massive amounts of sacrifice to achieve. Massive amounts. Even with the podcast that you're doing, like there's a massive amount of sacrifice and people might be like, oh, I want a podcast. It's like, do you want a podcast? Do you want to sit down for an hour a day and chat to someone, organize it and do all this sort of stuff? That's the price tag to pay, and the result is you have a podcast that helps loads and thousands of people. And I think that's important with comparison too.
Oh, no, I 100% agree with that, because, yeah, like, I get that a lot from my kids for a while, seeing that I was going away a lot, working, and they were like, they just seen me enjoying my time away, like, you're just going away all the time, and I was like, guys, I understand that you're seeing that side of it and the content from it. I was like, but you are not seeing the sacrifice I'm making to make a better life for you guys. I was like, let me explain this to you. And it'll be same with people that are watching that don't really think about it. Oh, she's away all the time, she's having a great time, she's living life. And I am, but I'm also alone a lot. I'm traveling alone. I'm in a hotel room alone. I usually go to places where I don't really know people. So I'm alone. Like everyone has their groups and I'm always made to feel welcome, don't get me wrong. But I'm not part of that group yet. So I'm still very much alone the whole time. And I was trying to explain this to my kids and they were like, oh, we didn't realise that. I'm like, yes, it's fun, it's amazing, love it. Love travelling with my work, love getting away, love meeting new people. But it's very lonely and people don't see that side. They only see that you're going away and having the best time ever. Yeah. And it's like, that's great. But you're not seeing the hours in the airport sitting by yourself and the hours in your room by yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a good point to make, is that there is, and like Eddie Hall, I did the podcast with him and he explained the sacrifices. Like he said, I pretty much see my family an hour a week.
Yeah.
Because he was obsessed. He was like, And you do. I think to get that level, you have to be, especially to the level he was lifting at, and all these guys are lifting at, is there is a sacrifice. That he was literally obsessed. He was like, it was eat, sleep, recover, eat, sleep, train, just that. I had no time for family. And that was the sacrifice he made. And then that's why he ended up retiring after he won World's Strongest Man, was because he promised his wife once he won, that would be it. But then also what came with that, he said, was he didn't know who he was without Strongman, without that routine.
Yeah.
So there's so much to it. Like, you see Eddie Hall and everything he's got and everything he's achieved, but he's been through some amount of shit to get to where he is now.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you talk about shit because my therapist will often say this to me if I'm struggling with comparison or whatever, and I think everybody does. Anyone that says don't compare
Oh yeah.
yourself, people are fucking lying. But I think one thing my therapist said is if you took your bag of shit, every shit thing that's ever happened to your life, and all the shite things that you've been through and whatever's tough about your life, put it into a bag and fucked it into a room, and everybody else fucked their bags of shit in the room, would you go and pick yours back up? I guarantee you would. Most
Yeah.
people would probably go and pick their own back up, and that's not to belittle your issues or your problems or whatever it might be, because again, they're tough, and that's not saying that they're not tough, but it's like, okay, you're not seeing the bags of shit that everybody else has as well, because everybody has a bag of shit. They just don't tend to put that out where everybody else can see it, because nobody wants to see a bag of shit. They just want to see the good sides, and I think that's it's so key. And in comparison, that kind of gets lost, and with the weight loss thing, it's something that gets lost all the time. Like, I'd often have clients come to me and be like, "Gosh, I want to lose weight this amount of time, and I'm only losing 1 pound. I've only lost 1 pound in maybe the last 2 weeks, and I know Sarah in the group there has lost 10. Like, what's going on?" I'm like, "Your life is completely different. You've way more struggles here on this end of things. Like, you don't have as much mobility. Maybe you have genetically higher hunger signals. Maybe it's a little bit harder for you to get active. But yet you're comparing yourself to someone that has a completely different bag of shit, that maybe has more time to exercise or naturally has more things in there, but maybe in the background they have other things going on as well that you
Yeah.
don't see. Maybe do you want to swap with that person? Likelihood is no. And I think that's, again, the comparison thing is so easy to fall down into a trap of, positively and negative. I think there's positive and negative aspects
Yeah.
of everything, and with coaching, I think, as for our job as coaches, to kind of highlight those positive and negatives to people, like positives of counting your actual steps, is that, okay, yeah, you have a number that you can kind of hit and you feel successfully at the 10,000 number. Negatives of counting steps, if you're hitting this 10,000, if you're not hitting this 10,000 step number, you're going to feel guilty and bad about it. If you're just looking at how you feel and using walking for how you feel, well, sometimes you might not get on the walk because you feel like shit, and that's the decision that you're making there, and you're deciding off feelings, which isn't always the best idea.
Yeah.
And so that's a negative of that. But the positive is you might enjoy your walks more and be less, say, body focused. So I think it's important to realize that there are positive and negatives to everybody's lives, but also positive and negatives to every single decision and thing that you want to achieve.
I agree. 100%. Everyone's different. I always say you have to just go by how you want to do it.
Yeah.
What works for you. It doesn't fucking matter what Jill next door's doing. Like, if
Yeah.
that works for her, that's great. But if that doesn't work for you, it's no use. You're not the same.
I
No
think
two
that's
people.
important. I have a question. I often throw questions across to podcast
Do
people that
it.
get me on the podcast because I love it. But how have you developed? Because I'm assuming all your life you probably weren't at a point where you just do things or you just get up and push yourself out of your comfort zone. For example, speaking in front of a group of people at Fit Expo. I looked it up last year when I was doing the talks at IFS and stuff. Number one fear on planet Earth is actually public speaking. That's the biggest fear that people have. It's the fear that 99, I think it's like 90% of humans have, that fear of standing up in front of a crowd and speaking
Yeah.
to people or pushing yourself out of your comfort zone or doing things. How have you gone about doing that? How have you developed that in yourself? Because obviously at the beginning, I don't think you were in that position.
No, definitely not. Public speaking's never been an issue, if I'm honest. Like, I love it. However, if you asked me to read something on a stage to people from a book, I would be very uncomfortable with that even now, because I'm highly dyslexic, and that would cause me a lot of anxiety. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but it would take a lot for me to read to somebody. So
Yeah.
but public speaking, I do get nervous, don't get me wrong. I get nervous and excited and all the mixed emotions, but I've never been nervous for that. But oh yeah, there's been lots of things I've pushed myself out my comfort zone to do. So probably the biggest one that stands out for me is when I split up with my husband, and I'd started with Paul Moore, and he was having his quarterly meetup in Newcastle, and I had never been past Glasgow without my husband in the car.
Okay.
And I was like, fuck. Like, how am I gonna do this? And it just came down to doing it for other people, because at this stage I was sharing my story, And I thought, you know, you have to show people you can do it. You have to show them they can do it as well. So it was, everything I do is always based on, it's never really for me. It's always like even my deadlift I got a couple of weeks ago. If you watch it, it goes up and it comes down, and then I remember who's watching. And
I
I'm
see
like,
it.
God. So one of my clients was watching, and she's like a really just a grinder. Like she'll grind anything out. She'll like be passed out before she lets go. And I was like, she's watching. Like you've taught her, you can't give up now. And then her daughter was there, and she's only 3. And I was like, she's like, all this is going through my head. I'm like, she's watching. I'm like, she's only 3, but you need to show her that you can do it. And then everyone was screaming. I was like, you have to show them that you can do it, so they can do it. And I was just like, ah. So I think my comfort zone for me is I always go back to who is watching, because there's always someone watching.
Yeah.
Who is watching? Because if I back out now, that's not going to help anyone. And if I back out, then they're going to be like, well, if Nicola can't do it, because, you know, I have got this very confident personality, I always have. I always think if she can't do it, then maybe I can't do it. If she's a confident person and I'm not so confident, if she can't do it, I can't do it. So I have a responsibility. I place the responsibility upon myself to push myself out of my comfort zone so that other people know they can do it as well. And I
Yeah.
think that stemmed from that very day of me losing weight. I think that was like the first thing that I was like, gotta get out of my comfort zone. Because walking to the end of the street, I almost felt like I was going to pass out. It was so embarrassing. But it was like, it's not for me. So it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter how I feel, because it's not for me. So I just make it about other people all the time. And if I want to do, but yeah, there's always somebody, even if I want something for me, there's always somebody else going to benefit. There's
Yeah.
someone there. Always. Doesn't matter how little or insignificant it is. And I think it's just for me. It's not. Because it benefits, anything I do benefits or negatively affects someone else.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always
Almost inspiring people.
who can I inspire?
Yeah.
Who's going to be watching?
Yeah, showing them they can do it, and I think that's probably something that is probably connected to my journey a little bit as well, is like standing up to bullies. Like I hate the bullying aspect, and so for me, it might not be standing up to bullies by doing something, but I'm standing up and showing people who are in a similar position to me or who have been, that they can do it, and I think that's super
Yep.
important. Like I think the way you tackle things is fucking cool, a lot different to me. So for me, it's like it's really difficult for me to so say for example, if I'd never driven out of Glasgow before or further or that far or whatever it might be, I would find it really hard to just do that in one go. Like I feel like I'd have to break it down and be like, okay, I'm going to travel 1 kilometer further than I did previously, and it would probably take me fucking ages to do it. Eventually I'd do it, but that's how
Yeah.
I challenge myself to do it. Now saying that, obviously with some things you kind of just have to fling yourself into the deep end and fucking do it. And what really helps, I suppose, part me with that as well is thinking of the negatives, like what's the worst that can happen. So
Yeah.
what's the really worst thing? So for you, I suppose, when you're traveling that long distance for the first time by yourself, you might break down and have a panic attack. That's the worst thing that happened. You're going to be okay. You'll figure it
Yeah.
out when that actually happens. I think for a lot of people, that fear, that not being able to do things, or that kind of courage, they just never take that leap because they're so afraid of all the negative things, but they're just thinking about them and they're all bouncing around in their head. But if you actually write them down, you realize they're actually not that bad. And at the end of the day, I can guarantee you, whatever is bad written on that piece of paper, that the negative is that you've experienced something much more difficult previously. And for me, that really helps. I'm like, okay, if I have to drive this X amount of distance and I'm really anxious, really nervous about it, well, I've experienced being sat beside on a bus on my school way home for fucking 2 hours where some guy was just in my ear the whole time calling me fat non-stop the whole way home. And I'm like, nothing's as bad as that, so that's easy, right? That this step is way easier than that, because that's not going to happen. And at the end of the day, all I'll have to do is pull over and be okay. And I think that it's similar in a way of you, like the standing up and inspiring people is something that's super important to myself. And I think a lot of good coaches, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a very, very much go big or go home. Like I don't think I do. And I think people need to start doing that. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like I think, you know, it's different for everyone. Like you said, you would like to break it down, things like that. I almost like that little bit of fear. That drives me,
Yeah.
because it's the same feeling as excitement, and it's like you start shitting yourself, getting really nervous, and it's like, but then like it just comes down to, but like, how many people can you like show that they can do? Like, I am so passionate. The biggest passion I have in life, the one thing, the only one thing, that if I achieve one thing in life, I'll be happy with, and that is, I don't want ever anyone ever in their life, if I can take responsibility for it, to feel how shit I felt about myself at my lowest point and thought I wasn't good enough. I will not, if it's up to me and I know somebody or I can impact somebody, you will not feel like that, because it is the worst feeling in the world when you think, when you truly believe, because I truly believed I was not good enough and I would never be. And I will do everything in my power for the rest of my life to make sure that the people I impact never ever feel like that.
Yeah.
So that is why I do crazy things, or I just decide I'm just going to do it, and I'm not going to fucking think about it, because I have a responsibility. Like, I have took it upon myself to make that my responsibility. I have to fucking show anyone, I don't give a fuck who's watching.
Yeah.
Somebody will see me doing this drive to Newcastle and then realise, well, she drove to Newcastle, maybe I could drive to Newcastle. And it worked, because my oldest client, Mandy, my oldest and by age and my oldest by client, I've had her for like 7 years, had a course in Edinburgh, and she'd never been herself before, but her husband couldn't go. And she said to me, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And she's 67.
Sick.
And it's still at 67, she looked and was like, if you can go to these places alone, I can go to Edinburgh alone. I was like, it fucking worked.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And then that drives me more. The more the people that tell me, I heard you say this one liner, or I heard you say this, and it made me take that step. Good. What else can I do? What else
Yeah.
can I do to be seen and be heard? That's it. That's all I care about. I don't care about anything else. It's my other business colleagues freak out because I don't go shit about the money. I don't care. I don't want to know. I'm not interested. Where can I go to talk to people? That's what I want
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that that's what makes a good, like, it's almost people first, and I think that that's super important. And it's the same for me, because I have similar thoughts of, like, I never want someone to experience the bullying or the wake in and how shit you feel in yourself. And I think that that's important. And it's funny how it's all connected to, like, how you're feeling, rather than, like, the two of us on this podcast aren't telling people to change the way that they look or whatever it might be. It's the two of us being like, look, we're here to support and do things like that. And I think that that's key. And I suppose with regards to helping people feel better, one thing that really helps me, and if I ever feeling, say, lack of confidence or feeling quite hard on myself, whatever, is almost wording it a little bit differently. So I always think, like, all right, I kind of zoom out my body. I'm like, what happens if this was one of your friends, and one of your friends is approaching with this exact same situation? What would you tell them? Take that advice. Just do that. What would you tell yourself if you were outside your body and you had to give yourself advice? What would you say? So, like, would you tell yourself you're a fat piece of shit, you're lazy, you can't do this, you can't do that?
Yeah.
Is that going to benefit you in any way? Probably not. So, like, what would you tell a friend? Oh, you're going to be able to get through it. Just take one step forward and try and do something rather than nothing. I think that that's key with building someone up. Like, I suppose both of our jobs is to try and build people up and make them feel great about themselves, rather than pull people down and demean them and make them feel like shit so that you can sell them something. And that's what a lot of people do.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of my questions every week in my check-in for my clients is, like, what did you struggle with this week? And if somebody was in your situation, what would you tell them?
Yeah.
And then they answer their own question. I'm like, you don't even need me,
Yeah, yeah.
because I don't want you to need me forever. You just answered your fucking question. And see, when you get a client that doesn't know the answer, and then in 3 weeks' time they fucking know the answer,
Yeah, sick.
you're like, you've just fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
You can do this alone now. You can do it. So
That's the first time I've ever heard. Like, it's so funny, because I think I have a similar approach to coaching. Is that my goal is obviously to help people, but I want people to be able to help themselves.
oh yeah, like, I have got clients I've had for years and years and years, but they generally don't need me. They just like
Yeah.
to coach with me, and I'm happy to coach them. We work together, we have a laugh, we have fun. I see them in the gym because I've got my own gym, and so they come there. It's more local people. But when people have been with me for X amount of time and then they say, I think I can do it alone now, I'm like, nailed it.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Like, I think it's different because I have a lot of athletes now, so you continue that journey together. It's a bit different, but with weight loss, you should get to a point where you're like, I think I can do this now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, yes, you can. You can. Off you go. I'll be here. I'll be here if you need me. Go on.
Yeah.
You like, release them. Like, oh, like a little child. Go on. Yay!
I feel like I need your energy every day.
Oh, well, you could just follow me on Instagram. Get on there.
I
I have
do
a
fucking follow
question.
you. Everyone that's listening better be following.
Yeah, you better follow me. You'll love it. I always just go on and make random stories about my dog shitting so much on walks, and yeah, it's all good fun. So, question. I remember you said at the Fit Expo when you were on the stage that you were feeling a bit nervous for doing talking. Do you get nervous doing public speaking,
Yeah,
or?
so I get quite anxious. I don't like to say. I think this is, I suppose, an important conversation, but a bit controversial. I don't like to say I have anxiety. I don't like to say I have depression. Or I don't like to say I have something or I am something, because I feel like that just again limits me and holds me back. If I said I am anxious every single situation, that's what I'm going to do to avoid it. I'm going to say
Yeah,
I'm anxious. I'm going to avoid it. I think that a lot of people that say they are anxious, or a lot of people that say these things aren't actually, don't have that disease. It's not a disease. It's not something that you're stuck with. And I feel like when you give yourself those labels, which is very common nowadays, that it kind of traps you. And for me, it's not that. I get anxious, but I think anxiousness is normal. Like, anxiousness would be the same as if I was excited for a fucking birthday present that someone was giving me.
yeah.
That's
It's the same
same
feeling.
feeling as, yeah, same feeling as being anxious to step up on stage to public speak. When I do get anxious, I speak quite quickly. But a couple of, and this is something as well, like, you're never going to be perfect at this, and it takes me longer sometimes, and I think it takes other people longer. Like, again, it's the comparison thing. When I compare it to somebody else, like, again, you, or if I compare myself to Lewis that was on stage, or anybody that was there, where they're speaking slowly, they're thinking about what they're saying, they're not panicking, or they're not having a shaky voice when they're speaking, I feel really shit about myself. But I realize for me, and again, I don't know about you, but I know Lewis hasn't been doing public speaking that long, maybe 2 years or so, and I've been doing it in around the same time, but I still have that thing of a shaky voice. I still have that thing where I panic and I speak really, really quickly, because that's what I do when I get quite anxious. But it takes me a little bit of time, because 2 or 3 years ago on a podcast, I wouldn't be able to leave a gap or not speak. I wouldn't be able to
Yeah,
do a podcast without panicking. Now I can literally just sit back in a chair and have a conversation with someone and actually speak probably more true to my story, more clear, and take a couple of seconds to think about what I'm going to say and be more calm. But that took me 2 or 3 years to develop. That's only in the last maybe year I've gotten better at that. With my public speaking, it's probably going to be the exact same. It's probably going to be a little bit of time, but speaking in front of crowds of people, and even like this whole social media game, fuck me. I woke up one day, I refreshed my page, and I went from 1,000 followers to 100,000 followers. I'm not going to fucking be used to that in the space of a day. Not going to happen. My life is, I'm not used to that. I like my quiet, just doing quiet shit and being by myself. I fucking love my own time. That's what I absolutely love. That's what I was used to. Doesn't mean that's where I want to stay. I want to push myself out of my comfort zone, but it's going to take time. Like, this hasn't been there that long for me to be ready for that, and that length of time is different for everybody. It's the same as weight loss. Like, weight loss takes different lengths of times for everybody, and they might have the same amount of weight to lose. For one person it might take a year, for another person it might take regaining and losing the weight and regaining weight and losing it for 5 years before they develop something that actually works for them. And so for me, I haven't developed that yet with public speaking, but I do get really anxious for it still.
yeah. Well, do you know what's funny? Like, 'cause obviously we said about, you were saying about when you've got your own bag of shit and you don't know the person's bag of shit. You were obviously saying you were on the stage and you felt, you heard me speak and Lewis speak, and then you started speaking fast and you were like
Yeah, yeah.
overthinking it a little bit. But I was sitting there thinking, this guy's fucking got all this following. He's really good and I love his videos. And I have never really, that's my first ever public speaking event about fitness. I've always done strongman and mindset. So I'd never really done fitness. Like,
Oh,
I've done fitness and fat loss my whole career, but I had
yeah,
never done, that was my first ever speaking gig on fat loss. And I'm surrounded by fat loss experts. And you're speaking, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is a fucking legend. How am I supposed, I'm sitting there with my kilt on, I'm wanting to be center of attention. I'm like, how am I going to top this? So you're thinking, oh my God, like
yeah.
Lewis, and
Funny.
but I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, I'm never gonna be able to
Yeah,
top this. Oh my God, I'm gonna be so shit compared to these guys. So it just shows you, I'm very confident in speaking. It's one of my favorite things to do. Still shitting it because I was next to people that I knew had just as much or more knowledge than what I have, but I still don't even know that. Like, it just
yeah,
shows you don't fucking know anything. So you've
yeah.
just got to do your best. So I was just like sitting there quite quietly. I was like, girl, you need to fucking talk. So I was like, okay, when I get my gap, I'm gonna jump in. So I was like,
Yeah, I think that's actually so important for me to even hear, because I think, like, one thing that I've started to notice recently, and with any journey, or even my weight loss journey, is you have to take action before you know you can, and you have to take action despite the feelings. Like, so for me, with feeling anxious and with like speaking really quickly or having, maybe those feelings will never disappear, and maybe I'll still always feel that anxious and nervous as like all of you guys have as well. But even though I'm picturing that, and that probably makes it worse as well because I'm comparing, but I think maybe those feelings will stay, but I'll just get better at dealing with them. So the feeling of like, even at the start of my weight loss journey, I can't do this, I'm not able to do this, I'm not able to do that, or whatever it might be. I don't necessarily have to believe I can. I just have to start and take actions, and then eventually what'll happen is I'll be more able to deal with those feelings of I can't. So
Yeah.
it's not that you have to, because I think with anxiety and feeling anxious and feeling nervous and stuff about things, people are like, I shouldn't feel like this. Like in any jiu-jitsu competition I've ever done or kickboxing competition I've done, where someone is quite literally trying to kill me, every time I felt anxious, every time I felt nervous, every time I felt like I've been sweating, I don't think that feeling ever goes for anybody, but I think you get better at dealing with it over time, and
Yeah.
you build evidence that you're going to be all right. And so I think that process sometimes takes a long time for me. Like my jiu-jitsu coaches be laughing because, again, at this stage I should probably be all right. And the last competition, I was white as a ghost, sick as fuck. I couldn't even eat food. I couldn't keep anything down. And everybody else that is competing at the same level as me and has done the same amount of competition was fine. And I was just like,
Yeah.
it just takes me longer to deal with these. And I think I need to come to terms. And a lot of people, even as I said, with weight losses, you have to come to terms with maybe the feeling of I can't do this won't disappear initially. You have to take action, and then over time
Yeah.
that'll.
Yeah, yeah. You got to prove to yourself you can do it, because at the end of the day, you don't know if you can do it.
No, yeah.
How are you going to know?
Yeah.
People walk into the gym all the time and say, I wish I could do strong women, but I can't. I'm like, oh, have you tried it, like? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, how the fuck do you know you can't then? And then they're like, I'm like, don't be a cunt. I'll see you next week. And then they come in. I'm not joking. I've got one person in mind, Alana, so if she's listening. She walked in and said, I wish I could, but I can't. Why? She couldn't answer me. I said, well, do you know what? Your next program is going to be strongman. And now she's competing.
Fuck.
But she says she can't. You didn't fucking know because you never tried it.
Yeah.
Turns out she can, and she's fucking good at it. So yeah, you don't know if you can. You're never gonna know unless you fucking go and do it.
Yeah.
There's never gonna be proof. You need proof. The only way you gotta prove it to yourself is by fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Doing the thing. That's like, I don't know I can do anything. For me, I don't see anything that's impossible. But I still don't know if I can do it. I don't actually have proof I can do whatever my next challenge is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna go
True.
find out, and I'll let you know.
It's so funny because so many of us put so much effort into that, like even for me with doing things, right? And I'd put a lot of effort into thinking about doing the thing. I'd put a lot of effort into the anxious and thoughts and stuff about doing the thing, and all these other sort of things about doing things, but it's not actually doing the thing. And all of these thoughts and feelings that I have, I'm thinking about and that I'm anxious about, actually take more energy and are more
Then the thing.
painful than actually just doing the fucking thing.
Yeah, it's the thought of the thing that you're scared of, not the thing.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's so funny. And like, see, with anxiety, what I find anytime that I get anxious, and because I still get really anxious, and I start getting stressed out and stuff, I just say it out loud. I'm just honest. If I'm on a stage and I get nervous, I say, guys, right, I'm not gonna lie, shit myself a little bit.
Yeah.
To make it funny, shit myself. I'm fucking nervous. I am shitting myself today. Just say it. And then as soon as you let it out, I released a podcast about that today. Calm the chaos. That's what it's called. Calm the chaos. And fucking say it out loud. Because when you say it out loud, you actually are like, that sounds a bit stupid.
Yeah.
Now I've said it out loud. Okay. That's not that bad. That part's done.
No, it's
And
funny.
then you're freer in here.
Yeah.
Just speak.
It's
Because I
something that
always
we
think
do.
I'm a shit coach. I always think I'm so shit. I'm such a shit coach and I need to do more, blah, 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 blah. And I say this in my head. And then I'll go and speak to one of my friends. And they're like, are you listening to yourself? I'm like, yeah, that sounds really stupid. They're like, yeah, you can go now. I'm like, okay,
What you
thanks.
do in that
Thanks for the outlet.
If you think you're a shit coach, sign up to fucking Slimming World or buy V-Shred's program online, and I promise you that'll prove you're not a fucking shit
I
coach.
know.
That's
But I
it,
just have
that's
a high
it.
expectation. I just want to be the best I could be. But when I say that out loud, and I'm like, well, I am, because I'm trying the best I can be right now. So that's what I mean by saying it out loud. If I say, oh, but I just want to, try give you everything, give you the support, and then I'm like, but that is what I'm doing. So then I'm okay then.
Yeah.
So, but our head, we keep it in here. Everything gets mixed up, and we're not rational. You say it out loud, you're like, that's hilarious.
Nobody can come at you for it then. Like if this is
Exactly. Nobody can say fuck all. But listen, mate, I just said it about myself. You don't need to tell me. I already fucking know.
Yeah. It's so funny because with online stuff like I get an awful slag. And I remember initially I was so afraid to put videos up online of myself and like quite self conscious about a lot of things, and even through school or whatever it was with my teeth. So I have Invisalign now; it's not as bad, but one of my teeth used to be quite far back. And like first video online, I just came on and said, "No, I'm actually really self conscious about my teeth." And then if someone was like, "Oh, your teeth are fucked," I'm just like, "I literally just told you, yeah, I know they are." That's what I said. Or even the anxiousness stuff. There's actually something that I did do at the IFS talk, was just stood up on stage and was like, "Look, I am fucking shitting myself here, really anxious." So then if I'm nervous and I'm slurring on my words and someone starts laughing or someone does whatever, I was like, "Oh, I'm like, "Yeah, I just told you I'm nervous, anxious. That's why this is happening." And then you look like the
Yeah.
fucking idiot then.
Plus, it's relatable. If you say you're nervous, folks are like, thank fuck, because I'm nervous too.
Yeah.
And it's like, if she's nervous, then it's okay for me to be nervous too. And then we're just all one big group of just nervous wrecks. It's all good.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a fuck.
No,
It's all good. And I think that's the best way, is just be honest about your feelings. Like, I know it could be difficult, but say it in whatever way you want to. If you're feeling something and you're stressed or whatever, just say it out loud. Say it out loud, because somebody else will be able to tell you, yeah, actually, I feel like that as well.
And in a few years' time, like I suppose that I always think back to this as well. In a few years' time, no matter what it is you're doing, whether you're trying to achieve weight and you're telling people, "Oh, I'm going to lose weight," and you're really afraid that you might not achieve it, or you're trying to hit a certain deadlift and trying to do certain things and maybe you don't, or maybe something, nobody's going to fucking really remember in a few years' time anyways, because you think people really give a fuck about you that much that they're going to keep you in their core memories for however long. I don't even remember what happened fucking last. I don't even really remember what I had for breakfast last week. Never mind anything else. So when it comes to like, even if I was on stage and I was fucking stuttering and doing whatever, or said something outrageous or did something stupid, people will forget about it within 2 or 3 weeks. Like, so
They'll forget about the next day. That's the attention span.
Give a fuck.
Nobody gives a fuck. It's the same when you win a trophy. I tell everybody I love to win. I'm competitive. But see, the next day there's another competition. Nobody gives a fuck about your trophy anymore.
It's mad.
Nobody gives a fuck. Because I've got second 2 years in a row at Scotland's, and I was raging. And I was like, but nobody gives a fuck, because the competition for someone else was on the next day. And all the Instagram stuff, they're like, "Oh yeah, well done, woo." Next day, don't give a fuck about you. No. It doesn't matter if I get second or first. Somebody still doesn't give a fuck. The next day.
Yeah, and even if you got the gold, you wouldn't be satisfied, because there'd always be the next thing.
Oh, 100%. Always. There's always more. There's always.
I want to win it twice. I want to win it 2 years in a row, or you'll come up with something. You'll move the goalpost. It's quite
exactly. I know. We're just fucking nuts, aren't we? But I think that we're going to finish it there. I think that was great. We could actually probably talk all day. Legit all day. It's been just like having a conversation. I feel like I've kind of talked about myself a lot on this podcast, but it's fine. I like doing that too. So it's all good.
We have the tins anyways.
Mine's finished, ready to go and train now. So where can everyone find you? Because I absolutely love your content. It's fucking hilarious. The one with the fridge the other day. And I spotted the carrot with straight away. I was like, yes. Straight away, I was like, love it.
I have to do stuff like that. So Mulligan's Fitness if you look up Oisin Mulligan, you'll find it on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, wherever.
I will put the links below and on the YouTube. This will be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. I'll make some reels as well, and we'll put some reels out there so you can all have a look, share it with everybody. But thank you so much for spending the time with me this afternoon. We'll definitely see each other again soon. You're going to come to the gym for a strongman session.
Yes.
Holding you to that.
I'll organise it because I think it'd make a good funny video. If not YouTube video, maybe a few Instagram.
Oh no, definitely YouTube. What a laugh would get. 100%. I love it. I'll train you, you train me. That'll be a good fun. I love it. Oh yeah, we'll do some like fighting or whatever that you do.
yeah. We'll do a strongman competition, and then after we'll do a bit of jiu-jitsu and see who ends up dead first.
I've never done jiu-jitsu. I would love to. Let's do that. Okay.
We will.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this Tinny Talk. If you did, like and subscribe. You know what to do. And we'll see you next time. Happy Tinny Talk. Woo!